Hello everybody, I'm here to do another video presentation. I hope you can understand what I'm saying. I've been to the dentist today. I've had a tooth extracted. I've got a swab in the side of my mouth, and I best keep it there because if I was to pull it away it could start bleeding, and I don't want to do that. And this is the best opportunity that I have in making a video, otherwise it may be another week or two before I get to have another opportunity to make a video. So this will probably be a quickie video, it won't be as long as my other videos. So I hope you understand, and let's get down to it. Okay, so as you're all aware, I do a lot of book reviews and book presentations. That is to say that I talk about a book, but because I have so many, and they're not like listening to an album and then you can review it, or to watch a film and then you can review it immediately after you've watched the film, because the film might be 2 hours long. An album or a CD might be 30 minutes to 40 minutes. A book takes a while to actually read, so I'll just talk about the book based on the title or the cover, or there might be a chapter that I've read and I could actually talk about that. But here's something that I want to review, and it's this movie called Christian F. Now I'll say this, in my opinion, this is perhaps the greatest movie made in West Berlin, or one of the greatest, put it that way, because I'm sure there are many others, but I haven't had the opportunity to watch them all. But this one stands out for me for multiple reasons. One of the reasons was actually when I actually first watched it. I watched this film back in 90, something like that, 91, and I watched it on VHS tape. This is a VHS tape, and the reason why I'm showing it and why I actually bought myself a copy of the film, because the film that I watched at the time was from a rental, so you had to go to a store to actually rent the video. You know, you have it for a day or two and you pay your money, and then after you've seen the film you take it back and then you rent another one. But this is my own copy, and I have a VHS tape player. This is how I saw the film. Now I have multiple copies of this particular film, several different formats, not so much to look for the best quality film, but to look for the best grimy, gritty quality. So it's got specks and it's got scratches and it's got cigarette marks. You know, you can get that. You can get like a cigarette mark stain on the film, and because this is how I first watched the film, and it reminds me of a movie called Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, because now you've got DVDs, Blu-rays, 4Ks, streaming, and they're all to try and get the best quality copy of the film. But I'm sort of going in reverse. I'm looking for the grimiest, the grossiest, the most scratched, the nastiest copy, because that's how I remembered it through watching this film on VHS, and that's the reason why I bought this copy. So Christian F. Wir Kinder vom Bahnhof Zoo. This is the VHS copy. This is my latest acquisition. This is a digipack. This is where it's all cleaned up and, you know, perfect picture quality. And when I bought this, I bought it online. And when you buy things online, as anybody will know if you buy online, is you can't see, well, you can, you see a picture of what you're buying, but you can't examine it like you can go into a shop and examine it. You know, you can pick it up, you can look through it, you can you know, have a little browse. You could read a page or two. But with this one, I couldn't. So it was almost like buying this copy was almost like an act of faith. So when I did receive it, I was very pleased. In fact, I was overwhelmed. Here's a picture of the scene outside Zoo Station, and this is where I think a lot of those that are on the game, as it were, looking for their Johns. They're looking to pick up someone because they have developed a heroin habit, and in order to buy more heroin, they have to sell themselves so that they can afford to buy their heroin when they need it, because it's a fight against going cold turkey because of what they have to go through to go cold turkey. Is just, well, it's beyond, you know, you wouldn't want to go through that sort of thing yourself, because it's awful. The other thing is some of the stills from the film, like this one here. This one, this is what I want to see. This is Berlin of the late 70s, early 80s. You know, if there is no director, you know, with a camera that captures a time, then it's gone forever. And this is where the film is really captured, because the film isn't so much just about Christiane F. Because Christiane F., for some of those who don't know, Christiane F. was a 13-year-old, 14-year-old girl who got hooked on heroin, and she went into the scene step by step, so to speak. First, she started drinking alcohol, you know, cheap bottles of Plonk that she could afford to buy. Then she would start smoking hashish. Then from hashish she'd be taking these pills, and then from taking these pills it would get more and more and more and more intense. And in the movie you can see this progression. So it's almost like somebody who's a normal teenager, you know, goes to school, has her friends, you know, meets them in a club, you know, like on a Thursday night or a Friday night, and then goes home to her parents. But this progressed a lot deeper and a lot darker. So it sort of starts off here, and then she goes down and descends down, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and it's almost like you can smell the urine, you can smell the piss, you can smell the shit, you can smell, you know, the sweat and the desperation in order for her to get her fix. But someone did it at that young age is just, you know, talk about walking on the wild side. I mean, this is just, well, it's just dreadful. And so anyway, this was the scene as it was in the 70s. And consequently, the story became so famous that it's almost like a modern classic. You know, you could get the book. It's in German. You could get the book easily, and I mean, it's something that you'd probably write a dissertation in school in Germany, of course. But having said that, here's the copy of the book. Now, I showed it on one of my other videos, so for those that haven't seen it, this is the copy of the book. Now, this book is going for, like, I've seen it going for £60. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I bought this relatively cheap, but not nowhere near that price. If you can get it for 20, that is your best bet. You know, you won't get it much cheaper than that unless the person who's selling it doesn't know what he's selling. But if you can get it for 20 quid, you've done really well. If you're somebody that can read German, then the book is easy. You can get it easily. Or perhaps in French or in Dutch or Italian. You know, if you're somebody who speaks those languages, then you can get a copy of the book relatively cheap. But this is the first edition. This is the book that you need to get, because this is the best translation of the original original book, the original story. This one is a retranslation, but the retranslation is nowhere near as impactful as the original. I mean, this you can get relatively cheap. You'll get this quite easily, I would say, but it doesn't quite have that gritty, grimy, dirty grunginess, you know, that the author's able to capture, which is Christiane F. herself. So this is a condensed, watered down version of the book, I'm sad to say. But I've read it, that's why I know the text, and I was a little disappointed, but if this is the only English copy that you can get at a relatively good price, then I would get this one. But the film itself starts in the middle of her story. The book starts at the beginning. This starts at the middle. And Christiane was disappointed with the film because it didn't tell the whole story. It only told part of it. Because it told her, or it told the story of why she got into the drug scene in Berlin when she did, because it was as a result of her parents splitting up, and the father, because his father was quite violent, not only to his two daughters, but to his then wife, because they have since divorced. So that's why, if you can get a copy, maybe a library copy, you might be able to get a library copy. You you'll read the backstory, and then once he gets into the scene, which is the film. However, if you're not so much a reader, then you want to start with the film, but that will start at the middle of her story, not at the beginning. So this is Christiane F. Wir Kinder vom Bahnhof Zoo, which means us kids from Zoo Station. Now, I bought another DVD to kind of complement the Christiane F. story. I love this film simply because it's not just about her and her story and her drug addiction and getting into prostitution. It talks about Berlin, or at least you can see the Berlin of that time. The director captures Berlin of that time. Whereas this is about a gay man cruising, who's a teacher, cruising for having sexual relationships with other men. And it's all open, and it's like, because it's a taboo subject, especially if you're a straight guy, this may not appeal to some people. I mean, certainly it will appeal to like cinephiles and people that have an appreciation for historic from a historical perspective. I mean, certainly that is for me. But where this doesn't quite have the impact as say this one is because it doesn't show the Berlin that I want to see. Christiane F. shows me the Berlin I want to see. This film doesn't. The director of this film did a fantastic job, and it's a superb story, and it's well told and acted, and the film is very well made. However, you don't get to see the Berlin that I hope to see when I actually first watched this film. So in that sense it was a little bit disappointing, but not a whole lot of disappointing, but it was. So this is not for the squeamish. There's some real intense scenes in this film, as there are in this one, in the Christian F. But I just thought I would show it to you because we have this parade thing, you know, this LBGT, I think they call it, you know, with transvestism and, you know, and parades and rainbow flags and all this kind of stuff. But back in the 70s and 80s, I mean, this was all open in Berlin. I mean, it's always been like that. It wasn't new, so I wasn't too shocked about, you know, so say for example, I had a boss who wore leopard skin trousers, and he would pluck his eyebrows and his eyelashes, and you know, and he'd walk around in these kind of high heels, but not. I don't mean high heels in terms of you know, what ladies wear high heels, but I mean they were kind of like, they were high heels to give him extra height, you know, when he stood, and they would clack, so you'd know when he was coming because he would always, you know, he didn't make a clacking sound when he walked. But he was, I mean, he was very, you know, he was really out there, let's put it that way. You know, he wasn't afraid to express who he was, you know, his sexual nature. Now here's a book. This is Christopher Isherwood, Goodbye Berlin. Now this is like a classic, like, say this one. This is a modern classic, but this is a classic. Christopher Isherwood himself was a gay man. He went to Berlin, and he lived there in the 20s and in the early 30s. Now, he had to leave Germany because the Nazis came into power, and because he was Jewish, he knew that it would be very difficult for him to stay in Germany. So he left at the right time, and you know, he would go on to write other books and stuff like that. But this is perhaps one of his most famous. Again, this is one of my first books when I started to get into the whole Berlin phenomena, that's one way I could actually put it. But this, because of his gayness, because he wanted to meet other gay men, he had to effectively leave England and go to Berlin in order to you know, to be able to meet other gay men and get into the gay scene in Berlin. And so to express yourself sexually in England was taboo. You just couldn't do it, you know. There was a law against the sort of indecency law. So say like someone like Noel Coward, who was this actor and perhaps quite famous, and I'm sure there were a lot of people knew that he was gay, but you know, it's not like he had to spend any time in prison as a result of his gayness. But there are others that were, unfortunately. So anyway, Christopher Isherwood, he moved to Berlin because he was a gay man and he wanted to enter the gay scene. And in Berlin, it's very open. So if you have, you know, if you're a gay man, or if you're a transvestite, or if you're or you have a particular kink like BDSM or something like that, you know, you like to walk on the wild side, Berlin is the place to go. It was very, very open. I'm sure the scene now isn't that different as it was, say, in the 70s or even in the 20s when Christopher Isherwood was there, because that's when it started to open up. The First World War ended, you know, there was this openness that there wasn't before then, you know, and you had the cabaret scene, and the cabaret scene was in full swing, and you had a lot of these, you know, this alternative behaviours of that are quite different to the morals that as perhaps a straight man or straight person or the straight society would perhaps not ever understand. And so it might be difficult to observe this alternative scene, and especially as far as Berlin is concerned. But because I have a fascination of Berlin, you have to get into into that scene in order to understand and have a better understanding of Berlin itself. So I thought this would, I thought I would bring these two films to your attention, which is Christian F., Wir Kinder vom Bahnhof Zoo, which is, you've got to see this film. If you're anywhere into, if you're a cinephile, you're into cinema, or you're into, say, taboo subjects, for example, because this is a very taboo subject, then I recommend Christian F. Now, if you're into Berlin, for example, you have an interest in Berlin, then this would be the ideal film to see. But there are some really hard, difficult scenes to watch, so you must bear that in mind. So if you're a bit delicate, you don't want to be triggered, then perhaps it's not the film to watch. And the other one is Taxi zum Klo, which means taxi to the public toilets, which, I mean, that kind of says it all, really. But this doesn't quite show the Berlin I would have loved to have seen. I mean, the movie is great, the story is great, the performances by the actors is great, and everything like that. But it doesn't show the Berlin that I would have liked to have seen. But having said all of that, this is a great film to watch. Again, not for the squeamish. I wouldn't recommend it if this is, if you're uncomfortable watching gay scenes, then perhaps it's best that you don't watch this film. But having said all that, this is a great film. I'd recommend Mark Kermode, who's a brilliant British film critic. If you can get to see one of his reviews of this film, I'd highly recommend that you do so. So that pretty much concludes this video presentation. Sorry I haven't got any gin here. I forgot to bring some gin, but I thought I would keep this a bit short, or a bit not as going on for like an hour, so that I can actually just focus on these two films. So alles Gute, auf Wiedersehen und bitte fall nicht nieder.